Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence here in the Flower City. We got it lined up. We'll knock it back. Welcome. You found us here at the Sports Bar on Rochester Sports Leader, WGR, as we will bring you a great show here today. Set it up for you here. Many ways you can reach us. Our phone number, 866-4326. You can reach us on X, The Fan Rochester. I did it again, WGR Rochester. Now it's off. Now I really got to start making charitable donations. Terrible. Right out of the gate. Opening minute. Cannot happen. Dare I say it's like the Amerks giving up a quick goal to LaBelle? Too soon on that?
9 times.
That was bad. We will not make light of that in hour two, because giving his time to us is the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Mike Leone. Mike Leone, as he does every Tuesday, will be joining us live today, 2:25, and we'll try to ask him some hard questions. This is not a great stretch here. The team having not won in their last six-game slide here, and then you go not one but two up to suburban Montreal this weekend. It's going to be trying, but there is hope. I would say there's hope as long as you have a goaltender that can be hot. Good things can happen here in the AHL playoffs, as there are 20 regular season games to go for the Amerks. Spring is coming. Cannot wait. By this time tomorrow, we're going to be feeling it. People will be driving around with their windows down, and we are long overdue for that. First time here in the new format, Matt Perino, Shout Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard. He'll be joining us at the bottom of this hour, as we couldn't line it up last week, because right at this time last week, it was Bean talking and it was new head coach Joe Brady talking. And because Matt was actually out in Indianapolis, well, he had to go cover those press conferences, of course. He also covered the Casey Concepcion press conference, and he had some of the original audio on that, with Concepcion giving a shout-out to the 585. Yeah, you know how I feel. I was corrected by a good friend of the show yesterday that did not know this. It's not an excuse, but you really shouldn't say speech impediment. Even though ESPN.com, in their story about Casey Concepcion, said speech impediment, speech disorder is the preferred way to say it. So we will just say, Casey Concepcion growing up with a stutter, and he has worked hard, but he's not ashamed to talk about it. He's ready to be a role model here to other kids that are battling through that. So I don't think I offended anybody by saying impediment yesterday, but moving forward, we won't say that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Again, 866-4326 is our phone number. As Perino coming up, we also have Michael Leone next hour. We have our good friend on mic here, or on camera, in his radio clothes today, wearing the Amerk hat. Now, I wanted to give a shout out to our buddy Dan DeLorean. He not only is camera shy, doesn't like to get on the mic, not as much as you do. He comes in today wearing. Now, granted, how old is Dan? I'm going to say. I should have asked him before this. I'm going to guess like 28, 29. He's got his whole Hilton regalia on. First time in Section 5 history, Hilton wins last night. And not only that, you got Hilton winning. You got Aquinas shocking Schrader. I did a Schrader game for my friend Gary Zajac. And Schrader, they were a machine. They were 22-0. And, well, that's what happens in hockey. You get to the end of the first period, you get to the end of the second, and sometimes, the team that has been better throughout the year just is not better. So sometimes we'll, give shout-outs here to Section 5, as we are the local sports show, certainly. And I know there are basketball games tonight, and there's going to be basketball games coming up this weekend at the Blue Cross. Hence, that's why the Amerks are going to be on the road this weekend. We do have the Nighthawks playing at home coming up on Sunday. So Dan DeLorean in the other room wearing his Hilton Cadet gear with pride today. And we have time for your calls at 866-4326. From yesterday's show, now, if you missed any part of a show, You can always download the Odyssey app, go back and listen to the rewind feature. Also, Dan DeLorean's working hard that, hey, I just want to hear the segment with Thor Nystrom yesterday. Well, yeah, it's all in bite-sized form, however you want to consume it. And if 1 to 3 p.m. is not the best time for you and you want to listen back to the entire show, well, again, Odyssey app, the way to go, and then you hook it up through your Bluetooth on the way home, and voila, we are with you on the way home. And by the way, when you do it through the Bluetooth, too, it's a better, the quality of the audio comes across better, in my opinion. Thor Nystrom yesterday, and we talked mainly about the combine. We talked about the receivers. And then since he's covering the Vikings for Score North, the Vikings are an interesting team from this standpoint. A couple standpoints. One, you fire your GM after the regular season. You're not going to hire a GM until later. You have an interim guy running the draft. Okay, push that aside for a second. You also have this storyline of, we spent this top 10 pick on J.J. McCarthy, and he was terrible last year. And the guy we let walk ended up winning a Super Bowl. My goodness. That sounds like something the Bills would have done, way back in the day, right? Like, how can you make that mistake? Well, it's done. It's over with. But the question is, like, J.J. McCarthy, you can't bank on him being better forward. We asked Thor Nystrom about the Viking quarterback plans moving forward.
The net is being cast wide to get to the point of, like, after the first couple of dominoes go with free agency, who could we get here for, that sort of a cheaper contract? So that's why it's hard to say in particular. But the three names that keep coming up that I think you could put as the, leaders of the clubhouse for this, a reunion with Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, or I think Kyler's the one that's like intriguing, but it's also problematic because he's not a great fit for O'Connell's offense, but the physical ability is probably the most. And so I think those three guys, you're going to gauge, can we get any of them on a super cheap 1-year contract? And you're going to kind of go from there.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Now they're going to have to do something because I'm not here to tell you that McCarthy's going to be the guy. In fact, he looked anything but last year. He looked bad at some points for the Vikings. So what do? Well, you got to at least hope that the kid can pull it together, and I guess it's been done before. I'm going to throw another name out there, and this is one that I think is intriguing. And of all those guys he just rattled off, certainly not the price tag of Kyler Murray, Geno Smith. Do you really want Geno Smith? I think Geno Smith has had a nice career, and he'd be a fine backup. But can you actually win games with Geno Smith? I'm not so sure on that. And then as far as Kirk Cousins, does Kirk Cousins really want to go back to Minnesota? He left, I suppose, and got the big money. But at this stage of his life, does he really want to go live up where it's freezing cold? I mean, maybe he had some good times, but is it going to be, if you're a Viking fan, is it going to be any better than it was before? I think there's another name out there that didn't play ball at all. If Derek Carr comes back, and maybe you can get him for a mid-round pick and flip it to the Saints, and I don't know what the Saints' plan would be, and I don't even know if Carr would be back, but just for the sake of the argument, it's like it kind of dawned on me. We were talking to Thor yesterday, like, wow, we've got to make it's not quite our bold prediction season. That comes in late August, early September, but I'm just putting it on paper right now. The annual quarterback carousel. And if you're a Bills fan, isn't this refreshing? You have to deal with this. How many years in the drought were you, could we find the guy? We were excited about Tyrod. The Ravens, they didn't know what they had behind Joe Flacco. And then Tyrod wins a few games. You're thinking, wow, we found our guy. No, that's usually what the quarterback carousel is about. Guys that teams kind of get a little tired of, and then they realize, we actually should try and do better. That's all this is. And, like, if you're a Viking fan, you should try to do better than Kirk Cousins and J.J. McCarthy. I mean, Derek Carr could be the guy after a year of rest. I would roll in that direction. And then if Carr, the unexpected happens, that McCarthy all of a sudden balls out in camp, and he's showing you the promise, and suddenly the light bulb goes on. All right, well then Derek Carr can kind of, step aside, or maybe you trade him or whatever it is. But for the rest of this argument, I'm just going to lay out the teams. And then I'll go to Tim here if he at the end just to see our producer Tim Schneider on the other side. If I missed any teams here, or if he thinks I'm egregiously wrong on any of these. Let's start off in the AFC East, okay? Because both teams need a quarterback. I'm just going to assume that Tua is not going to be in Miami and they're going to move on. In fact, like even if he is somehow still there, well, you didn't trust him to play last year, so why all of a sudden would you trust him now? I do think I am believing that this would be the team. It's an owner who is not afraid to throw around money. He's a little bit of a jock sniffer. I do think this would be the landing spot for Malik Willis. Malik Willis coming out of Liberty just didn't have the support system. When we knew this in that draft, like Liberty was running nothing more than a glorified high school offense. And then he goes to Tennessee and he's just kind of set up to fail. Like he should have been somebody that, okay, you're just going to take a year, maybe even longer, learn, develop, and voila. And then all of a sudden he goes up to Green Bay and it's like, hey, that looks like what the promise was. Now, it's easier, of course, when you're the backup quarterback and you don't have to do it week after week after week. And it'll be more tougher in Miami, in my opinion, because I don't know what kind of support system the Dolphins will provide. Okay, Achan's still there. And Waddle's still there. How's that offensive line? Defense is porous. Like, Miami is a full-on rebuild. We can agree that. So is Malik Willis really going to be put in a position for success? I don't know, but I see that happening. For Peter and all of our Jet fans, you're going to move off of Justin Fields. No. You should be happy on that. Like the sad trombone, maybe just, from that it didn't work. This is where I see Kyler Murray going. This is a head coach. I don't know how much pull Aaron Glenn has, but he can point to hey, if I'm going to be successful, I just can't wait and tank another year here. And maybe, I don't get the sense, but maybe through the whole draft process, there will be a quarterback that somehow will be the Phoenix and rise from the ashes, and all of a sudden will be the number 2 overall pick. I don't see that happening. It shouldn't happen. It should be Fernando Mendoza, and then after that, we'll see. If the Jets really want to draft a quarterback, I would advise them to trade down. I don't see that happening. I think Kyler Murray will be the next quarterback in the New York Jets, which, all right, that'll entertain Jet fans, but in the end, it's nothing more than a stopgap. You should actually draft your next. It would be great for Buffalo because it'll, lure Jet fans into this, hey, we're going to be fine. Oh, my gosh, we're actually winning a few games that we never won before. So if Kyler Murray is the Jets quarterback, where does that leave Arizona? Arizona feels very bridgy to me, if I can use a noun into an adjective, like bridge quarterbacks, certainly. They should draft their next guy. How about Kirk Cousins to Arizona? Kirk Cousins will be released, has been released. He'll be a free agent. Go live. That's, either you're going to Florida or Arizona. Like, that's a good place for retirement, I hear. But back to the Dolphins, where does Tua land? I'm buying into this. An owner in the NFC who, he's not the number 1 game in town when it comes to football. Isn't that crazy to think? But that's the way it is in the South. The Atlanta Falcons are not the top dog there, but that's an owner, and that's a fan base that certainly respects Alabama football. They cheer for the Bulldogs, certainly, but they respect Alabama. How could you not? And you could sell that easily. That Miami didn't know what they were doing with Tua Tagovailoa. And you could bring in Tua, and that way you don't have to worry about Penix when Penix gets right. That's another one of those situations where, hey, you have a starting quarterback. There are 3 of them. Indianapolis, and kind of skipping over the Colts right now. I don't know what to say about their situation with Daniel Jones. Jones should be back there, but is he going to be healthy? Penix will not be healthy week 1, so they bring in Tua for a mid-round pick. What about the third team that maybe needs a quarterback, Kansas City? For the record, I think that sucks. I don't want the Bills to advance because other teams are getting hurt, right? And if the Bills had made it to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, I don't think any of us would have cared, but there would have been people pointing out, hey, you were in a year where Patrick Mahomes, got hurt. Well, they were losing games prior to that. I'll just kind of point that out. Kansas City has a little bit of an issue. They can't guarantee that Patrick Mahomes will be ready to go week 1. I think there's a Bills connection. I think that of all the backup guys last year that could go in, and if you need them to start for a month, you could do much, much worse than Mitchell Trubisky. And that would be kind of a stinger, right? Like Mitchell Trubisky, couple tours of duty with Buffalo, and now he's going to go join the dark side. But if they're willing to pay him, I don't think Kansas City can really, afford to, pee away a month there, so to speak, if that ends up being. And maybe Mahomes is ready week 1, but I think that would be a perfect place for Mitchell Trubisky to get himself a pay grade, get himself a raise, which leaves us to Pittsburgh. And here's Steve like, what they should do is try through the draft again, and maybe it's the quarterback from Alabama. Maybe it's somebody else in this draft. But for now, you are in Aaron Rodgers' jail. I love these stories that, hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to make his decision quickly. He'll let really? Because that's what he does, right? He considers his employer. He considers the fans he plays for. He considers his teammates. No, he doesn't do any of that. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to do the Steelers any favors. So you signed up for this crazy. It's like when you have a friend who dates somebody like, you really shouldn't be dating that person, but you can't really say that. But this is sports. We can say that. You signed up for this. You should do better, Pittsburgh. You almost forget. It's like, wait a second. They actually have another head coach. Yeah, it should be a new beginning. Nope. Mike McCarthy, very comfortable with Aaron Rodgers. We'll keep everything status quo. And as far as the Colts situation, maybe that's where Trubisky ends up. I think that you really can't rely on Anthony Richardson. I did not consider Anthony Richardson for any of these scenarios. You can't trust that. And for anybody that says, well, why not bring him into Buffalo and develop him? No. I don't give a damn about developing a backup quarterback in Buffalo. The purpose of the backup quarterback in Buffalo is, worst case scenario, hey, come in and don't wreck the car. Win a couple games. And Anthony Richardson can't do that for you at this point. Sure, maybe he goes somewhere and he can, what's the best case scenario? He's the next Malik Willis. He's going to show you like, hey, it didn't go well here, but look at me now, everybody. Yay. Well, that's because they had an injury in Green Bay. So I don't really think it's worth the time to roll the dice on Anthony Richardson if he's going to be a free agent after this year. 866-4326 if you're welcome feedback. And where's this leave for the Bills for a backup quarterback? Like at this point, it's like, oh, yeah, that guy, sure. Like there was one year where there was another Allen as the backup. Like that would be kind of a good quiz. Like go through the backup quarterbacks year by year. 1 year on our show, Case Keenum joined us from camp. That was a lot of fun. I don't know if he'd come back up to Western New York, but living the life of a backup quarterback, it's great. It's good, fantastic, right? You don't get any of the pressure. You're getting a good paycheck. A lot of downtime, I suppose, where you're in team meetings. It's not very fun. Tim, did I get any of this wrong?
I don't know if you got any of it wrong. I'm not sure you move off of Penix just yet. I mean, I know he's hurt, but I don't know if you invest into somebody to replace him rather than just a holdover.
That's the problem, I guess, in Atlanta, right? And it's like their injury. It's like you should be thinking about. Like, that's why the whole Penix pick made no sense, because is this the first time he's had a serious injury like this? No. Second time? No. It's the third time. Like, that should have been like 2 serious knee injuries. Like, whoa, do we really need to be spending a top 10 pick on this, especially since we paid all this money to Kirk Cousins? And, as it turned out, Kirk Cousins was a bad contract too, which it looks like they'll be getting out from underneath. We have, yes, we're going to talk NBA next hour because we do have some audio. We don't really talk about how Rochester is a great town in terms of turning out prospects. Thomas Bryant, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Pickett. Now we have another one, Nate Williams, and what he did for Golden State the other night. But it's not only that, it's his quote. And it's his quote about Rochester, which I'm happy that he gives us a shout out, but it kind of turns the mirror on ourselves a little bit. We'll get to that later in the show. We will also have, again, against my better judgment, Terrible Time Timmy's terrible take of the day. And for the rules of this exercise, I don't know what he's going to say. But coming up next, we will talk to our good friend, Matt Perino, Shop Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard, as he was out in Indianapolis. We should have a bevy of Bills news by this time next week as legal tampering begins on Monday. Matt Perino joining us next here. This is the Sports Bar in WGR Rochester.
Sports Update.
Sabres play their first home game since February the 5th. Vegas, the opponent tonight. And, of course, it's a night where Sabre fans can honor their gold medalist, Tage Thompson. He's Excited for tonight.
I'm really excited for tonight. Obviously, bringing the gold home, that wasn't just for our team, that was for the whole country. And obviously the fans in Buffalo are a huge part of that. And I enjoy playing in this building. It's been a lot of fun, especially recently. I'm excited to see the reaction we get and, be able to share that moment with our crowd.
Like I said, he's excited for tonight. Sabres hockey will begin at 7 tonight here on WGR Rochester. The Amerks are off until Friday when they play the first at 2 at first place Laval. Head coach Mike Leone will join us next hour. Syracuse basketball playing their final road game of the regular season tonight. The Orange playing at number 24 Louisville. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Top shelf sports talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
The Rock, 585, I moved out of Charlotte, when I was about 5. That is the Bills is actually my dad's favorite team. So, I've been watching him, I have been watching, since I was young. I've been seeing, Josh Allen, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, I would be grateful.
Oh, Casey, come home. Yes. Yes. As we welcome in Matt Perino. I've had draft crushes over the years, Matt, but he had me at 5'8", and you were out there covering that in Indianapolis. Matt, appreciate you. How are you today?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm well. How was going out there, the combine? I would just imagine there's just a lot of information after a few short weeks. So tell us, let us live vicariously through you. How was the whole experience, Matt?
It was great. I love going out to Indy. It's a great time to kind of dive in, get some intel, talk to people around the league, not just like coaches and executives and scouts and stuff and agents, but like other reporters around the league that are kind of chasing different things, maybe kind of get a sense of some players that, might be free agents or maybe could be a cap casualty and stuff like that. So a lot of fun conversations. And then obviously that Friday was a big day with all the receivers. And I feel like it's been a huge week for the 585. You got Casey Concepcion giving the shout out at the Combine. Nate Williams, former UB great and product of Rochester, had himself a big night last night. So it's been I feel like the week of Rochester.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been we could back it up to last year with Ernie Clement, almost giving us the World Series victory there for the Jays. As Matt, I appreciate all the work you were doing there, and thank you for that audio you put up there on social media with Casey Concepcion. Is it too soon to just say, which of these receivers, if the Bills want to go in that direction in the first round, would be good fits? Or is the answer actually, this is a receiver room that's so in need of talent, the answer could be, hey, make an argument for anybody at this point?
You definitely can make an argument for anybody at this point. And also, like, it's the great unknown of this regime, which the scouting staff is still in place. Like, I don't think a lot of people were screaming Keon Coleman a couple of years ago, and that's the receiver that they end up going with. So, like, right now, as I kind of look at all of these guys and, I try to just think about who they've targeted as recently as the trade deadline last year, right? The noise around Jalen Waddle, the noise around Deebo Samuel. Like, to me, Concepcion is kind of a little bit more in maybe that Waddle bucket. Not that level of player, but that style, I would say. And then I think Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana is like, if you wanted a young version of Deebo Samuel, I think that's the way that you'd go. And it felt like at the deadline, the strongest report where there was maybe, life around something, that was one of those things. And there's actually noise also that Deebo Samuel could be getting released in Washington. Do the Bills maybe take a run at him in free agency if they can't land a big fish like a Mike Evans or somebody else via trade? And then it's about, now are you going to, maybe styles makes fights, and I don't want to get an Omar Cooper Jr. now if I'm signing Deebo, or maybe I want both of them. I don't know. Like, getting inside the the heads of Brandon Beane and some of the decision makers over there has been a challenge at this position, especially.
Yeah, the way I would describe it from what I said about Brandon Beane in terms of, okay, what's going to happen, what is behind the scenes happening now, and then will be revealed to us beginning on Monday, meaning, all right, free agency, legal tampering, blah, blah, blah. It's a plan A, basically. Okay, here is our plan A, but then there are variables you don't know about plan A, like, hey, our offer came in short, this player decided to go somewhere else, or, hey, we now that we have that money allocated, you have, like, different scenarios here. If you're Brandon Beane, I'd be fascinated to learn what his plan A is. But before we even get to that, Matt, and I thought Ryan Talbot did a nice job breaking down, before we get to that, the Bills can do a little bit more to open up some cap space. And Ryan hit on one of them, the Spencer Brown, contract renegotiation that happened. And so it's good that freed up some space. What other things can happen here coming up, in your opinion, between now and Monday, where the Bills could be a little bit more of a player here come free agency?
Yeah, I think to start with, Josh Allen restructure gives them probably the biggest chunk of money that they can get. And then they got to just make some decisions on guys that are amongst their biggest cap hits, Dawson Knox, Ed Oliver, and Deion Dawkins. And there's just a whole host of ways you can go about it. Like, you can restructure, you can extend. Like, those are some conversations I think you're having with Ed and Deion. The Ed part of it is a little bit more complicated because I don't think you want to necessarily do too much to the current deal. It comes down to whether or not you want him part of the program for the next couple. So do you want to extend him and just completely take that cap hit this year all the way down, but now you're in the Ed Oliver business for the next couple of seasons? There's been a little bit of noise about teams calling, according to Jeremy Fowler, I believe was the report, teams calling the Bills on Ed Oliver and them rebuffing them. Like, they're not interested in dealing him. Well, if that's the case, if you're not interested in dealing him right now, that tells me that you're probably in that business for the next couple of years. So I think that's a lever that you pull to give him an extension. And the thing I like about Oliver, it's kind of like this double-edged sword. Like, we've always been talking about how much more you'd love him to produce statistically as a pass rusher in the stat column that we all love, the sacks, right? But if he was a 10-plus sack guy around contract time, you're talking about a pretty big number. Yeah. That I think that the Bills are going to get him at a little bit lower of a number than some of his, contemporaries. And I think that's the piece of this that you want him to have a breakout season, but maybe you think he's going to have a breakout season under Jim Leonard. Get in on that now, give him an extension at a number you're really comfortable with, and it helps you right now, give you capital to go out and do some moves.
I think that I'll just say this. I think all these players deserve all the money that they can get. These careers are very, very short. So it's very uncomfortable when we're talking about guys taking potential pay cuts, because I don't believe or think that Dawson Knox deserves a pay cut. I think that the franchise or any team should honor that, but this is the business. And this is the problem the Bills are up against. And I always sense that Dawson Knox should be a guy that, maybe he's not, the best tight end in franchise history, but my gosh, Matt, like, he's somebody that should retire as a Buffalo Bill, like, would be a perfect tight end 2 on this team. I just would love to know the process that's going on behind the scenes here. Would Brandon Beane actually give his agent, kind of the option like, hey, listen, if you want to go talk to other teams just to see if they're willing to pay you more than what we're paying you, this would be a pay cut. It all has to be just kind of very uncomfortable here for both sides, I would think.
I mean, it could be, but I do think that at this point, for a guy like Dawson Knox, who's been in the league since 2019, has had a contract negotiation, has had close teammates that have left and have been cut and have been all the parts of ugly parts of the business. That's just kind of what you sign up for. And I think the way that you go about it, if you're on the Bill side, is working with the player and saying, listen, this is what you're about set to make. This is what it's going to count against our salary cap. This has been the reality of the program here over the last couple of years. You're this number 2 tight end on this team behind Dalton Kincaid, who we spent a first-round draft pick for. We're appreciative of the way that you've handled it. And when you signed that deal, it wasn't necessarily something you were signing up for. but at the same time, the production doesn't meet the value on that cap hit for this season. We just got to find the right move here. And that right move from a team perspective could be telling Dawson Knox, hey, if you think you're worth this much, go out and get it. And that's just not something that we can afford on our cap right now, especially considering you get $10 million for free just by releasing him. And listen, I'm not trying to downplay the value of Dawson Knox. He's been a very valuable, versatile, and reliable guy. As Dalton Kincaid has dealt with these knee issues, it's always been Dawson Knox that you've been able to kind of call upon and say, hey, you're back to being tight end one once again. And don't forget, he had 9 touchdowns in a season a couple of years ago that helped earn him this contract that he's now in the final years of. So you're right. It's never a perfect situation, but it is a business situation. And I think both sides have to do their best to find what they want. Does Dawson want to be here long-term? Probably. He's got a great relationship with the quarterback. But I think even he would admit $17 million cap hit for a number 2 tight end. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, no doubt. As we're talking about the Bills coming up next Monday, legal tampering, if they still call it that, beginning here as the league year will begin on the 11th. Matt Perino from the Shout podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard as well. A player that I thought, I don't want to say pleasant surprise because we always knew he had it, but my gosh, seeing Tre'Davious White down the stretch just come around. I mean, it started off a little rocky. I think of that Dolphin game in week 3 where the Bills win, but okay, is this actually going to work? But by the end of the year, he's making plays. He has the big play in the Jacksonville playoff victory. So I guess my question is, Matt, I think everybody would nod their head. Yeah, would you like to have Tre'Davious White back? Absolutely. He's due to be a free agent, and he'd be perfect in a competition with Maxwell Hairston. What kind of market, though, do you think, knowing that other teams probably saw what we're seeing, that Tre'Davious White seems to come back around here?
Yeah, it's hard to project because I don't know how perfect of a fit he is in Leonard's defense. From what I've been told, what I've read, and obviously you look in Denver with the 2 corners that played there, even Riley Moss, who it felt like was kind of left out on an island a lot of times, and teams exposed that at times. I don't know if Tre'Davious White is a fit in this scheme where they're probably going to play a lot more man defense and they're going to ask their corners to cover one-on-one quite a bit more. So that's the first question you have to ask. But in terms of the guy, I'm not sure there's a guy that you would want to bring back into your program more than Tre'Davious White. I mean, that story last year was phenomenal. We voted him the Ken Hall Media Good Guy, Stand-Up Guy Award winner. I mean, there was something extra special about it because when he left, there was a part of the mental side of the game that you could just tell had run its course on him and affected him greatly. And so much so that, he couldn't stand in front of a media gathering and do an interview. I mean, you almost felt bad for him in that way. And the way that he kind of had this, reawakening that this last year and really helped a lot of the guys in that defensive backs room, I think you'd love to bring that back. The other thing, too, is I think about this sometimes, though. How does Tre'Davious White feel about what happened to Sean McDermott, who's his guy? That's the guy that drafted him. That's the guy that, he came back here to really be a leader in McDermott's locker room. And I feel like their relationship, if you want to talk about maybe who was the closest to Sean during his tenure, I think you can make the argument for Trey. So there might be feelings there that we don't know about that might eliminate any kind of deal. And then you mentioned it. What does the market look like for him? He's probably going to want some money because he played like a top-tiered number 2 cornerback last season. And that pays probably somewhere around $12 million per season, $10 million per season, depending on who you're talking to and what kind of need they have. And the Bills aren't going to be able to come anywhere close to that, I would imagine. So there's so many factors that play into it. My guess is probably that Trey is not back, but it's a bummer because he was great to cover last year.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be leading the charge at some point too, and I think he has football still left in him, no doubt about it. Matt, sticking with the secondary, and I'm going to, forgive me for not knowing who originally asked this question to Brandon Beane. But the subject of Taron Johnson came up, and Bean always will kind of default to the "we'll never rule it out" kind of thing. But how real do you think that is? That Taron Johnson moving over to a safety position, because you think about it like, well, that could kind of work, but then it opens up another problem. Like, okay, how much would the slot nickel be used here? My question is about Taron Johnson. Where would he best be suited here coming up in this Leonard defense?
I'm probably closest on Taron to saying that he's probably not going to be back in some way, shape, or form. I mean, a post-June 1st cut it gives you a lot of relief. And a lot of people think that there's no value in getting money back post-June 1st. Well, if you want to make a trade at some point in the summer or once the season begins, you're going to need cap space. And the issue that I think I have with the Taron vision here is the idea of him playing safety in Jim Leonard's defense is a major projection. And I think the strength of bringing in a guy like Jim Leonard, who has connections that run deep in college football, is that you're going to have the ability to maybe draft your defensive backfield over the next 2 years. And listen, I know that Taron Johnson has played great football here for a long time, but he wasn't the same player last year. Like, when he was on the field, there was a little bit of regression. And so I think when you're looking at these numbers and trying to figure out where can we open up some space, and does it make sense based on maybe what we envision for this role, and maybe not fitting in quite exactly with how Taron Johnson should be best utilized. I think we could be living in a world where he's not on the roster when we get to St. John Fisher training camp.
Wow, that I got to be honest, Matt, that didn't ever cross my mind, but you lay it out there. We should be kind of expecting anything. Are there any other moves that you could think could be surprising? You were the one that just brought up, hey, is Deion Dawkins kind of outlived this contract? If you're going to go forward with this, how does this kind of look? Should we brace for anything else here in the coming days?
So that one got a little bit, took on a life of its own a little bit. I was just kind of starting a conversation around, is this something that the Bills will talk about this offseason? And I basically made the point that if they're not doing their job. Like, you have to be evaluating guys every single year and trying to put together the best roster that you can and gather all the resources that you can. But I wrote up 5 to 8 moves that the Bills could do to save money recently, and one of them was extending Deion Dawkins. Because I think the issue with any idea that you'd move on from Dawkins is where I couldn't get myself to make the argument is that you'd have to find his replacement. And I don't think that replacement's on the roster. I think there's definitely a world we'll live in the next couple of days where it might become a reality that both the left guard and center leave via free agency. So if you have 3 openings on your offensive line, something that's been the strength of your team the last couple of years, I think that's a little bit off-putting. And, they want to kind of run this thing back, and, they want to add to it. I mean, that would create some serious questions if you had to find 3 new pieces on your offensive line. So, yeah, could you trade them and start to think about, an Ed Oliver trade, a Deion Dawkins trade? I think at this point, that's going to, get you some significant draft capital back, like something that I think wouldn't be the end of the world if you considered it. But especially with Deion, it's just projecting a 2026 starter that's going to give you the level of play, even the level of play that we saw from Deion last year, which I thought was a little bit of a drop-off from his previous couple of seasons. Mm-hmm. And not only just the production as a pass blocker or a run blocker, he had 7 false start penalties last year. Do you know how many the rest of the 4 starters on the line had combined?
Ooh.
2.
Ooh.
2.
Ooh.
That is a glaring statistic, something that week after week, it's like it feels like there's a false start penalty popping up from Deion Dawkins. Like, those are drive killers. He had one in the playoffs. Like, he had one in the Denver game, if you remember.
Yep.
That was an absolute killer. So as you start to think about, okay, 32 to 33, I believe, is going to be his he's going to turn 33, or he's going to turn 32, I can't remember. But he's getting up there in age. And you start to wonder now, offensive linemen, they can play for a long time. Trent Williams is still doing it. I think he's almost 40. And so, I don't think that they're in necessarily outside of Deion's prime or anything like that. But how many more years is he going to command the kind of trade package that he probably could command right now? And are you convinced that the penalties aren't going to be an issue moving forward, that were a huge issue this past year? Those are just conversations that I think if you're not having, you're not doing your job. But where I ultimately had it ended in my own brain was not trading him. So that's where I was at.
Yeah, no, it's everything you should look at, I suppose. I was a little surprised that the Bills brought back Sam Franklin, knowing that, all right, it's somebody that if you need to use. I like special teamers who can actually be, good quality reserves, and I'm not sure we saw that. But then again, I'm not paying as close attention to the special teams. What did you think of the Bills just making a little bit of investment, bringing back one of their core special teamers, Matt?
It was a nothing burger for me. I think that was I think I saw that on social media from Greg Tomset from Cover One, and I totally agree with it because the number is just going to get gobbled up into the top 51. It's going to be, it's basically a 1-year deal. I think it was like $2.3 million of the $174 he's getting this year. So you eat a little dead cap money to move on from him last year, but you basically are saying, hey, this guy ran all of our special teams last year. We really liked him, and we're going to get him at a pretty good value. Paying $1.7 million this year for Sam Franklin, I think you sign up for that. You're right. He doesn't give you a ton of other value. He's kind of like a hybrid DB type of guy, and it's funny. It didn't even feel like he was in the game right away in the Jets game at the end of the season. So that really tells you where they thought he was defensively. But man, he is an electric player on special teams. I can remember 2 or 3 games where he changed the vibes with a big play, a big tackle, and I think, if you're going to kick the ball off in the landing zone, you got to make sure they're not getting past the 25, 30-yard line. And I think having that kind of weapon, and he did it quite a bit last season, is valuable because we've seen how easy the Bills have scored when they're able to get good drive starts courtesy of Ray Davis. And I think how you combat that is finding a guy on the other side that can help limit those big plays.
Matt, we're anticipating a lot of news coming up next week, and maybe we get news along the way. So set us up here for you and Ryan. What is the schedule here for the Shout podcast, and what can we go check out coming up here on Syracuse.com?
Yeah, we're actually going to be live tonight at about 5:30 with our one of our big free agency preview shows. We'll get into all of our favorite ideas, some of the things that I kind of heard in Indianapolis and how that could affect some of their own free agents and everything like that. And then we'll obviously have reactionary podcasts the rest of the week and then into next week as the moves start coming.
Matt, appreciate the time, man. We'll be checking it all out. Thanks so much, buddy.
Sounds good. Take care, bud.
Thanks. Matt Perino from the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast giving us a few minutes. And I hadn't really considered. I was thinking, all right, well, Taron Johnson, that's somebody that, maybe this would be the time moving off. But then I really don't know what Jim Leonard wants, in a player in the secondary. And maybe this is the time you move off it altogether. Interesting kind of nugget there from Matt Perino. We will take a break. We will have Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Take of the Day coming up. We'll talk about the Bills NBA connection. Quite an interesting quote from one of them today. We'll get to that. And we'll also have Amex head coach Mike Leone joining us next hour. You're welcome to call us, of course. 866-4326, area code 585 here on WGR Rochester.
So much. best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
Sabres hockey tonight as they're taking on Vegas, as that should be quite the interesting scene at the beginning of the game. Welcome you back in. Gene Battaglia with you. We will be talking to Amerks head coach Mike Leone as, look, one good weekend in suburban Montreal. Take 3 or 4 points, and everything is looking a little bit better. We're not in panic mode that this team is going to miss the postseason. However, the road ahead is going to be tough. In fact, I would say it's brutal. 5 of the last 6 games are on the road. Your next 2 are in Laval, and in between, it's a lot. 20 games down the stretch here for the Amerks, with the focus being in Buffalo. Hey, make the postseason, and, okay, whatever happens in Rochester happens in Rochester. We will talk to Mike Leone as he is going to be going up to Canada, coming up with the rest of the team as they play the first of 2 on Friday. Time for, in our new show, our new segment, day number 2 of Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Takes. Tim, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I know that you're going to touch on this to some extent later in the show, but there's an event coming up May 24th in Las Vegas. It's called the Enhanced Games, and it permits and almost promotes performance-enhancing drugs.
I remember this story originally, and okay, I don't want to step on your take here, but I've heard of this. I just didn't know. Here we are. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's 2 months away. There's an Olympic gold medalist participating. Not using PEDs, but they are permitted. My take is that PEDs shouldn't be banned. They're performance-enhancing drugs. Enhancement is good.
So this is the age-old question.
Summer of 98.
Okay,
MLB.
all right. So, right. This is the age-old question, Tim. And I would just kind of put this out. This is sports radio from the birth of sports radio, right? We live in a free society. You're making a free choice. Who cares? And I would just say this, that, all right, I don't care, and I'll dial it back. Okay, so Barry Bonds is allegedly using whatever. Okay, fine. Well, he's making money. That's his choice. So what about the guy at the next level? What about the minor leaguer that's just trying to make his first major league contract? Okay, fine. We're fine with that. All right. Well, what about that player that is coming out of college and just trying to get paid, right? He's 21. Okay, you're fine with that. Well, hey, college is expensive. What about the high school? There's a line. There is a line. And by the way, Tim, this stuff's not good for you. So, honestly, hey, you do what you want to do. I'm not. Who is watching this? Who is going to be making money off of this? This just seems like a story from The Onion, the Enhanced Games.
I just think that it shouldn't be considered cheating in all sports. If you want to, if it's you're injecting it, you're putting it into your body. You know the risks. You know the inherent results.
Well,
possible.
but now see, the problem is it flipped for good reason in baseball, because in order to keep your job, you felt compelled to do this. And that's why athletes are like, hey, my health is more important. Let's put an end to this. The story is, and we'll get to this later, is that Jerson Profar, second time he's been popped. Hey, you got to take a seat. 162-game suspension coming up. Boy, the hits is keeping coming for the Atlanta Braves, and, well, I'm not upset about that. But thank you, Tim, for weighing in. Always interesting when we get Tim, that's our producer, Tim Schneider. I haven't made a determination if the Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Take segment will stick. Maybe the peasantry wants to weigh in. Again, our handle, WGR Rochester Online. You can call us at 866-4326. Mike Leone will join us coming up bottom of next hour. So we have time for your calls. We'll get to some of these other news and notes from around the NFL, including a Bill scheduling note that we're just going to use some kind of easy deductive reasoning that will paint at least one kind of image for you about the schedule coming up here in 2026. 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester.
WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey Sports Station, WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
Sabres play their first home game since February the 5th. The Vegas Golden Knights and Jack Eichel coming to town. Tage Thompson to be honored prior to the game is for winning his Olympic gold medal. Head coach Lindy Ruff talking about the upcoming trade deadline.
With the trade deadline looming, that you have conversations about, can you make your team better? And if there's some piece out there that can make your team better, we've got ourselves a great opportunity to do it. And I think Yarmo and his group that's what they're looking at.
Ruff this morning on Jeremy and Joe here on WGR Rochester. Amerks are off until Friday at Laval. Mike Leone will join us later this hour. Syracuse basketball. We are in the month of March, of course. This is the final road game of the regular season. The Orange playing at number 24, Louisville. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
Flying in at hour number 2, you found us. Tell a friend, like, subscribe, do all that, please. 866-4326 here, the Sports Bar on Rochester Sports Leader, WGR Rochester, as we are moving along. And Coach Mike Leone to join us a little bit from now. If you missed hour number 1, we had a fantastic Bills conversation with Matt Perino from the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast, good friend of the show since he returned to Western New York after having worked with UFC. He has been with us since day one and bringing up some interesting points here, too, like if there's going to be a surprise move for the Buffalo Bills. How safe is Taron Johnson's spot on this roster where you could potentially designate something June 1st? And Matt pointing out, too, like, why would you do that? Well, the Bills should be in the market come NFL trade deadline during the season. You should be in the market. You're going to need money to do those sort of things. So these are interesting times ahead here for the Buffalo Bills as they're going to reshape this roster, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And what's interesting about it is I and many others can't tell you what's being said inside those walls at One Bills Live. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Like, you go back to the days of Doug Whaley, and it seemed like Jason LaConfort was, breaking something almost every other day. You don't want your favorite team news to kind of leak that way. You want, kind of the agenda to be in-house. For that matter, like when it comes to these other sensitive conversations where maybe they are having a conversation with Dawson Knox, who knows? Things that will be revealed to us here in the coming days as the NFL the calendar season for the NFL, I should say, begins next Wednesday on the 11th, but legal tampering beginning on the 9th. So we're going to have a lot to get to. This came across, and sometimes there are stories where it's just kind of a Rochester connection, and it kind of makes you feel good about things, right? And the connection being this, we know that the NFL, in terms of talent from Rochester, there's a few guys, but not that much. When it comes to the NBA, like of all the major league sports, it's the NBA when it comes to per capita. Isaiah Stewart, Thomas Bryant, Jalen Pickett. We were joined last year by Fisher head coach Mike Rosadoni on the program, and he was his head coach at Aquinas. And this is like one of the coolest stories. Like Jalen, like, hey, do you get to watch Jalen Pickett? On the on the NBA League Pass. I do. He gave me his password. It's kind of a cool nugget that I just kind of get a kick out of. That here's an NBA player become a kind of a really nice defensive part for that Denver Nugget team. And remembering his high school coach to the point where, like, hey, coach, you can watch me anytime. Here's my pass. Anthony Lamb, had to look it up. He's now playing in Jerusalem. So good that, and there's other guys too, like a guy on the horizon. I don't know what kind of pro he'll be, but this might hurt you, Tim.
Yeah, it does.
You know where I'm going with this. But Melvin Council Jr. has been doing a great job at Kansas.
Yeah.
And Kansas, they're always kind of making waves when it comes tournament time, and that's going to be another 5A5 connection. So a lot kind of going on here, but then we also have this other story, and the story being about Nate Williams. Now, Nate Williams, somebody that played at UB, part of that fun UB team from a few years back, right? And he got into the NBA, worked his way in, was with Houston for a little bit, Portland, played in 47 games, started just a handful, but a guy that has been, right on the line. And this year was, in the G League with the affiliate of the Golden State Warriors. So Nate Williams this past weekend for Golden State down in the G League, Santa Cruz, okay, which I hear is really nice, Santa Cruz. But anyhow, that's where Nate Williams, the G League team, is. And played Friday night for Santa Cruz, Saturday night for Santa Cruz, and then Sunday afternoon for Santa Cruz. Does that sound familiar? Like you're playing for the Rochester Americans.
3-3.
Yeah, the 3-3. There's a little less of that, but it happens, I guess, in the G League that, hey, we need to save money, and more often than not, people on budgets like to go to games on the weekends when they have the time off, as opposed to a weekday. So that's kind of interesting. But then all of a sudden, Golden State needs somebody to play defensively. And this was Monday night, and it's late Monday night, and because we get back into the sports bar and what's happening on Tuesday, we really didn't catch on this. Nate Williams in this game, they're playing the Clippers, does a really nice job defensively matching up with Kawhi Leonard. To the point where you have these observers. Now, Golden State, that's a major market. There's still a lot of media covering the Warriors, even though this kind of a down and out year for them. But they're saying, you know what, this is somebody they can use down the stretch. This is exactly what this team needs. And they're pointing, we need to keep this guy. He shouldn't be on a two-way contract. And so Nate Williams bringing that tough, physical edge, playing his high school ball here at UPrep. Nate Williams then talking about where he came from. This was at practice this week.
Your competitive spirit guarding Kawhi, saying he bleeds just like I bleed. Where does that mentality come from?
I fear God, that's the only man I fear. And I'm from Rochester, New York, in the back streets. So if you go in my neighborhood, you will know why I'm this way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like turning the mirror around on us. And I don't have any problem with him saying that. I mean, some of these kids don't get the things that you would want kind of growing up. And I'm not here to, explain what it was like for him growing up in Rochester. But I'm just curious how people feel when they hear a quote like that at 866-4326. That we want to hear, hey, Rochester, oh, we love you. It was really, really great. And we think about that, but it seems like there are two Rochesters, right? There's the Rochester where we have an Ernie Clement and everybody else, and we have Section 5. Then you have this other Rochester that is producing great talent and that are in neighborhoods that maybe you've never been to.
Yeah, it provides a perspective that we don't really have.
Yeah, play that again. This was now new Golden State Warrior Nate Williams talking about where he came from.
Your competitive spirit guarding Kawhi, saying he bleeds just like I bleed. Where does that mentality come from?
I fear God, that's the only man I fear. And I'm from Rochester, New York, in the back streets. So if you go in my neighborhood, you will know why I'm this way. Yeah.
So I guess after the game, he was asked about it, and like, oh my gosh, like you nervous guarding Kawhi Leonard? And like, no, he bleeds like I bleed, which that's fantastic. So, but it's also, yeah, we have work to do in this town.
It's a kid proving he belongs, and you've got to put the work in, and he's doing it. He's getting an opportunity with Golden State.
Other stories here today. Breece Hall gets tagged. He gets $14 million, or will get $14 million from the Jets. The Jets have so much cap room. Why not do this? And fantasy players always kind of want to see Breece Hall go somewhere else. I know there was, that community moaning online today, wondering, okay, could Breece Hall hit the open market? And I'm sure he's not happy about this. But for the Jets, look, the tag is always kind of a hostile move. It is. Like, you don't want to get to this point. You'd rather have the parameters of a deal. And I'll credit Brandon Beane on this. He doesn't do that. They could have done this, certainly. But you know how you avoid getting to the tag? you don't do this in the year of said tag. Like, we almost forget, well, you didn't do that there with James Cook. No, because James Cook wasn't going to be a free agent. Like, if James Cook couldn't come to terms, well, then we would be having this conversation like right around now. Think of how far out the Bills were on that. Like it eliminates a lot of drama in a way. And in some other ways, maybe it's not good because you're making investments. See Terrell Bernard, see Greg Rousseau. I mean, have you gotten the return on that? Well, James Cook, yeah, you got the return. So, like, if you're the Jets, you could have avoided this by not having to wait till this long. And you're still going to have a decision to make. Are you going to give the guy long-term money or not? Because just getting tagged means, all right, we're guaranteeing you the $14 million this year. And then if we do this again next year, you're going to get paid. This is how the Cowboys got in that loop of paying Dak Prescott money over money over money. So we have only 2 other tags so far, Kyle Pitts and George Pickens. So those are the only other 2 tags right now. We still have a little bit more time on that. We have the Atlanta Falcons ready to play in Madrid. Now, all the other hosts have been announced, which means, all right, only one of these hosts for a game outside our borders. That's the LA Rams. They're going to go all the way down under. They're going to Australia, right? That could have been a road game for the Buffalo Bills. We know it won't be because they've already announced the opponent, that being the San Francisco 49ers. So for all 9 of the road games for Buffalo this season, they will be in the United States.
9 times.
Which that's such an advantage, is it not? And you could say, well, both teams travel overseas. That's okay, sure, when you go overseas, but not having to deal with that. Like, you're the Niners where you have to go to Australia and you have to go to Mexico City. The thing with the Bills is this, that they will get tapped one of these years. And maybe they just want to give the Bills the feel-good story with the new stadium opening and, hey, the state gave you all this money and you have all the PSL money that's coming through. I just go back to last summer where out of nowhere, the Bills have this press conference really about nothing. It was just them showing up in Toronto saying, we're going to have this business relationship with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. I'm like, okay. All right, is this where this is going? And ultimately, the Sky Dome is not configured anymore. Rogers Center for football. It's not. With the renovations there, that seating, it's just that now you can't fit a football stadium, a football field inside that stadium. But they have that soccer stadium, and I'm just wondering if the NFL is, willing to kind of look the other way to help Buffalo out. Will the Bills go up there, say, for a preseason game at some point? Or dare I say an international game at some point? It would seem to me that if the Bills are going to have to give up home games rather than go to London, at least, you have this other outlet. And I think ultimately that could be it. Tim brought this up earlier. This is a story out of baseball today. And for baseball, when you're going to look, if you're somebody like me, I'm going to go home and I'll pop on the MLB network and you'll have the scroll and then you'll see, oh, wait a second, the Tigers are playing Mexico today, or whoever it may be. I'm just making that up. But today's the day where you have a lot of weird matchups. You have these teams in the World Baseball Classic actually playing Major League Baseball teams. There are 20 teams in the World Baseball Classic. And the analogy I would draw is this. If you're not into it this weekend, that's fine. Just be cognizant of it. That's what I'm going to be, because I think this weekend is kind of like, well, it's like the Olympics where, okay, you have the United States women's hockey team playing Italy, and it's not going to be close. Do we really think Aaron Judge in the U.S. against Great Britain in pool play is going to be all that interesting? No. Also, they really bend the rules. Oh, my gosh, do they bend the rules? Like in terms of, okay, you're by the rule here, Tim, I probably could represent either Ireland or Italy. Yeah, that's how, like, hey, your grandparents, okay, you once visited there. I'm exaggerating a little bit. And shame on me for not knowing. I can go read up on this tonight, and that's what I like to do when I don't know the answer. But there's some connection between Curacao and the Netherlands. So Jurison Profar is from Curacao, which would make him eligible to play for the Netherlands World Baseball Team. Well, not anymore. The PED violation. Profar testing positive. 162 game suspension. See you this time next year in 2027. Profar will forfeit his Braves salary of $15 million, ineligible for the postseason. It was last year that Profar was suspended 80 games. And you look back at the prepared statement by the lawyer, whoever, and you went to the never knowingly card. Like, oh my gosh, how did this end up in my system? I have no idea. Well, that's your responsibility. You need to know what you're putting in your body. So it's good on MLB that they have this policy. Tim had to take that this shouldn't be a thing, but I would say you need to protect the healthy guys in the sport. And you want to also kind of at least set an example for your younger fan base that this is not the way to go. So good on MLB. And if you're a Braves fan, you're got to be like, okay, is there a team in sports that has been more bitten by injury bug and this sort of nonsense than the Atlanta Braves? I mean, you had a Cy Young Award candidate. You had an MVP go down last year. That was Strider, and that was Acuna. And then you have these other injuries. Schwellenbach, he's done. You have it's like injury after injury after injury, and now another PED for this outfielder who should have been your starting outfielder in left field. Should have been a viable bat in the lineup. Now you got to go figure that out. You got to be furious if you're a Braves fan. To answer my own question, I would say probably the Niners, to the point where it's just weird. You can't blame it on the turf at MetLife Stadium, right? Okay, yes, there was somebody who went down there once upon a time. People are blaming on a power station, whatnot. We'll have more coming up as we invite your calls. 866-4326 is our phone number. Let's talk to head coach Michael Leone of the Rochester Americans. That's coming up next year. My name is Gene Battaglia here on The Fan. Make it now, WGR Rochester.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
Sabres hockey tonight. Nearly a calendar month since we had a home game here for this team. Vegas is the opponent. Jack Eichel, of course, coming back to West New York. Center Tage Thompson will be honored before the game.
I'm really excited for tonight. Obviously, bringing the gold home, that wasn't just for our team, that was for the whole country. And obviously the fans in Buffalo are a huge part of that. And I enjoy playing in this building. It's been a lot of fun, especially recently. I'm excited to see the reaction we get and, be able to share that moment with our crowd.
Thompson today on Sabres Live. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on WGR Rochester. The Amherst are off until Friday when they play at Laval. Syracuse basketball playing their final road game of the regular season tonight. The Orange playing at number 24 Louisville. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
So, for folks expecting to hear Mike Leone, he just got pulled into something. I don't know what that is. Don't want to speculate. But having a good guy like Warren Kozel on the scene right now, and there's an event at the School of the Holy Childhood today, and doing some good charity work. Filling in for head coach Mike Leone today is Rochester Americans defenseman Jack Rathbone. Jack, you're filling in for the coach here. No pressure here, buddy. How are you today?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. Tell us a little bit. You're an Amherst here. How's your time been in Rochester here so far?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Had a great year last year, and I was really excited to re-up for 2 more. And been a great start to this year, and really excited about the team we got, and hopefully making a playoff run with them.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a bumpy ride. Like if you go back to last Wednesday, where you're playing in a tight game in Cleveland and you're throwing the kitchen sink and everything else there, and it doesn't go your way. That's just the sport of hockey sometimes. Like, how you as a veteran leader of this team, Jack, try to keep everybody, their spirits up when you're doing the right stuff, but maybe sometimes the results aren't what you want here.
Yeah, I think it's a long season. It's 72 games. You're going to have some ups and downs. I think that's kind of the message that we've just been trying to reiterate. You keep doing the right things, you're going to get rewarded, and I think that's the effort's been there. I think it's just a bounce here, a bounce there, and we're having a little bit of a different conversation. But it's I think you're going to have these dips. It's just finding a way to stop the snowball from getting too big and trying to find a way to get off the schneid.
Yeah, Jack Rathbone filling in for head coach Mike Leone today. As the Amherst going up to Laval, I'm sure you're not excited about facing this particular team, or are you? That game here this past Friday night, make that Saturday, like whenever it was, giving up 9 goals, Jack. What was that like? And some of those goals just kind of happened, right off a face-off practically.
Yeah, I think we're really excited about the opportunity to go back up there. I think it's one of the cooler environments in the AHL. And I mean, in terms of our division, you're not really going to get a night off. So no matter who you're playing, we're going to be up against a tough team and a tough test, and be a fun team to do it against. Just in terms of the battles we've had over the course of my last year and a half here, we've had some great battles with them, and you got to beat the best, and it's a team that we got to go through if we want to do anything this year. So I think it's something we're all looking forward to going on the road.
Jack, you've got a 2-way contract with the Sabres. What has it been like for you seeing some of your teammates here in Rochester go up? And not only are they going up, but like ultimately that's what this is about, right? Like, as much as we here in Rochester want the Amherst and to win, and we don't care about anything else, ultimately really the goal is, all right, get the Sabres to a place. What is it like for you to see your teammates not only go up, but just to have the success they're having in Buffalo right now?
It's awesome. I think it's cool for us to be able to watch guys like Ostie and Metz and those guys have success at the next level. And, at the end of the day, those are guys that we went to war here with for a while and guys that you root for every time they get an opportunity like that. So seeing them take advantage of it is it's really cool just in terms of those guys being pretty close friends of ours. It's been awesome to see.
Before you were a pro, you played at Harvard. What was the Bean Pot like? Bring us behind the scenes there. How much did that mean to you, your time at Harvard?
Yeah, it's awesome. My dad went to Boston College, and so I grew up kind of just the Bean Pot was obviously a really special time of year in my family, just something that we always look forward to going into the Garden. I remember going ever since I was a little kid, and the dream, I think pro hockey wasn't really even a thought. I think at the time growing up, it was just I want to play at a Bean Pot school, and I want to be able to compete for that championship every year. And that was the main goal of mine in terms of trying to decide on a college. And I got really, really lucky in terms of having the opportunity to go to a place like Harvard and kind of make that dream a reality. It was cool. Obviously, didn't win one in my time there, but just being able to be a part of it and compete for it was really special for my 2 years there.
Yeah, Jack, here in Rochester we have RIT, and for their students, there the team, the men's hockey team, you have to balance studies there. What is that like though when you're playing in such a tough conference like the ECAC, and you've got these demands in the classroom there? It teaches you a lot, I would think, at an early age.
Yeah. I think obviously it was education was going to be pretty important to me and my family, and being able to have the opportunity to go to a place like Harvard off the ice was obviously really special. Met some really cool people, and two of the best years of my life. But yeah, I think just in terms of time management and being able to balance the two of them was obviously something that was pretty important early on, and I obviously had to learn to balance both opportunities on the ice and off the ice, and try and take full advantage of each. And thought I did well with both.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. You graduated, correct?
No, I'm in the process of it right now. So
all right.
I left when COVID hit. They didn't end up having a season that year, so I left and turned pro and signed in Vancouver.
Okay.
And then I've been taking summer classes and working towards the degree ever since, and just kind of in the process of that right now.
My daughter is a teacher, and she yells at me, "Don't rely on Wikipedia. Wikipedia says you graduated." So, shame on me, Jack. But Jack Rathbone joining us here today. What were you majoring at the time there, Jack?
I started off with econ, and then I moved into psychology just kind of towards the end, and then that's kind of the track that I've been on ever since.
20 games left in the Amherst season. What is this team? What needs to happen here to have this team in a good spot here, Jack, in order to get ready for the postseason?
Yeah, I think just in terms of trying to ramp up, just because you can't really flip the switch once playoffs starts, you can't really just turn it on. So I want to try and play these last 20 or so like they're playoff hockey games, and realistically that's what they are right now with how tight our division is. So I think just trying to get in that mindset of playing playoff hockey sooner rather than later.
So do you follow Boston sports at all closely, or are you just too much into it right now? Are you into the Sox and the Patriots? No?
Yeah, big Sox, big Pats fan. So I definitely keep an eye on them.
The Sox are promising. I mean, they're pitching this year, Jack. Yeah, they're promising, and then you had to enjoy it. Nobody expected the Patriots to go where they went to. Are you kidding me? Where we are right now, that was, for Bills fans, it was just a miserable experience, Jack.
Yeah, it was interesting with the guys. It was fun going to the rink every day. We had a few guys that were Bills fans, so it was cool in that sense for me. But I obviously know I've been spoiled growing up with the success we've had, and seeing them do what they did this year was really cool.
Jack Rathbone, finish up. Tell us about the event today here that you were participating in, because it's good that you guys. It's great. Check that. Like it's kind of a you're off time and you're giving back here.
Yeah, no, I think I think any chance we get to do events like these out in the community, I think it's something that we all look forward to. Obviously, gives you a lot of perspective and how lucky we are to do what we do, and any chance we get to be able to put a smile on those kids' faces and do events like this floor hockey game. I know I was a part of it last year too, so I was looking forward to it this year. Something that we have a lot of fun with. I know they have a lot of fun competing, and it was a blast this year again.
Yeah, well, we got to wait until next Wednesday. We got a little ways to get our next home game here. So good luck up in Quebec. I'm asking for a 4-point weekend. Is that too much here? Am I being too greedy here, Jack?
No, I don't think that's too much to ask for. I think that's the plan going up there, and well, obviously that's the goal.
Well, you are a good man for filling in here last second for your head coach. I'm going to let him know that. I'm going to put in a good word for you, Jack.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Jack Rathbone joining us here as that was what you would call an audible. Thank you very much to Warren and the fine PR staff of the Rochester Americans. Interesting guy, right? Jack Rathbone. Imagine you're 26, and now you're on a two-way contract. He was a first-round pick of Vancouver.
Third.
Was he a third-round pick?
Yes.
Okay. High pick, though. Still somebody that you have plans for. And spent time with the Canucks over the parts of 4 seasons, really. And then goes to Abbotsford, and now you're carving out a niche here could be, like, how long can you make a career in the American Hockey League as a defenseman? He's on a two-way contract, so don't get me Rathbone 95th overall. Okay, there we go. So not a first-round pick, but certainly somebody that did spend some time up in the NHL. Great to have him on today, and we'll line up Mike Leone for next week. I don't know why the last second Mike couldn't join us, but if we find out it's something related, I'm always curious. Which opens up time for you. Last call here in the sports bar. Get it? Sports bar, last call. Imagery stays. 866-4326, 866-4FAN here on WGR Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
Sabres tonight, 7 o'clock, as Jack Eichel will be out there, and it's going to be one of those, yay. Like, I always kind of chuckle whenever you watch one of those award shows like the Oscars, and they pan to, like, the 5 box, meaning, okay, all 5 people, they have a camera on, they're going to split the screen, and only one is going to win, and then everybody else has to have that fake smile, like, oh, I'm so happy for you. Yeah, that's what it's going to be like tonight here with Jack Eichel. But once the game starts, boo the heck out of him. Boo the man. And no problem with that. You know, you pay your money as a fan. I would just say during that ceremony, don't make Buffalo the story that they don't know how to, handle a ceremony like this. Just let Tage go out there. It's going to be a nice thing. He'll bring out Jack, and then the polite applause, limit the boos, and then when you get to the game itself, just if you want to then boo, by all means. You have every right to once the game starts. 866-4326 is our phone number, and thanks to Jack Rathbone for filling in last second. That's the beauty of live radio. Like, we didn't expect Jack Rathbone, but great conversation there as tomorrow, we'll tell you, we have a big-name guest coming up on the show tomorrow. We'll get to that here in a little bit. One other note out of spring training, and at the end of last year, it wasn't going well for the Mets, but at least you had some fun in terms of the future. Meaning you had Jonah Tong coming in, you had Nolan McLean, and these were 2 guys a little ahead of schedule, but at least it kept the Mets interesting somewhat in the month of September. Nolan McLean has vertigo. So he's on that World Baseball Classic roster, and I guess he's doing okay the last couple days, but he's now not going to start until Game 4. At least that's kind of the plan. I had vertigo in my 20s, and it was right before I was getting married, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a nightmare. Like, when you have vertigo, it's, it just affects your balance on everything. And your sleep actually doesn't happen as well as it could. Why? Because if you turn over, all of a sudden your bedroom starts spinning. So it sounds something simple, but really it isn't. There was Nick Asaski, I think it was, an infielder that his career kind of got derailed by vertigo. So hopefully that is something. And look, I just got on some medication, and you're fine. So sometimes, it can be a quick fix, and hopefully that's the case for Nolan McLean. Another thing we can get to here in the sports bar, and that is our ongoing quest. And I'm going to shut this down coming up on Friday. So I'm giving you a few more days, if you're thinking about this, to be the author, the writer, the composer of our new theme song here in the sports bar. And to kind of review, we had an original submission from Joe from Schenectady that got everything going, and then realized it was kind of good in the sense that it was okay, but it just kind of said to folks, hey, you know what, maybe you can do better. And then Chris from South Central Kentucky came in, and he did better. And then we had Kent from Fairport, and he did well. But then I think we have this. This was Dan from Fairport, who right now is the leader in the clubhouse.
Pull up a chair, stay for a while. You're in the sports bar on WGR. Grab a drink, hang your coat, get sports talk. Live from Western New York. It's a master stroke. 9 times better than your typical host. 9 times. Gene and Tim have takes much harder than most. No one cares when you're out. Americans, Red Wings, and Nighthawks. Sports Bar for Rochester Sports Talk.
Ooh, that just pops. It hits. I love it. I'm not saying that's the winner. I'm giving everybody until Friday. But then we played this yesterday, and this was a tweet that came in to us. You can write to us at any point. Our handle, WGR Rochester, is good friend of the show, Jack from Avon, writing in. This is coming to you because I was listening on the app. See, that's the thing. Like, if you're listening on the app, Just understand we do this show live 1 to 3 weekdays here, Eastern time. But, in terms of us, getting back to you, well, that's why, in off hours. But, again, Jack writing in, I was going to dust off my Kramer Voyager and plug in my PV amp and craft you a new theme song, but you have it. A solo musician cannot compete with AI. So I think you have it with Dan and Fairport. Jack, I don't want you to give up. Yeah, all the submissions so far, I think they've all been AI, right?
100%.
100%, which it's kind of scary because music's going to be AI. We had this joke originally, Danger and I would just be the hologram of the two of us. No, it's actually just going to be AI. It'll be AI, Gene and Tim at some point here in the sports bar. And, we'll tell you what happened last night in the Amherst game and we'll have a bad take or whatever. And then, the AI thing is creatively, it's great and it's spooky and it's all everything kind of coming up in one here. Before we get to who's coming up on the show tomorrow, another interesting note, and this is an interesting analogy from an ESPN executive talking about what Caitlin Clark has done. Quote, I say this in quite literally the most positive way possible. Caitlin's a gateway drug for some people to women's sports. Okay. That is an interesting choice of words. If I say word association, gateway drug, what do you say? Gateway drug. Weed. Yes. Why would you even bring that into the conversation? And the amount of people using marijuana right now, I would think we would have more on heroin. But I digress. Okay. Look, I think that's a little off. I don't think it's a gender thing. I think it's a greatness thing. If you are Gen X, and if you haven't figured it out, that's where I am. I live in that neighborhood, right? Were you really into golf until Tiger came along? Be honest. Probably not, right? It was the sport that was very stuffy, and yeah, just a bunch of old white guys there, and no, it wasn't very cool. And then Tiger changed all that, and why? Because he was awesome at it. He was dominating a sport at a level that we hadn't seen. Maybe you could say Gretzky, but this is more of an individual sport. Well, that's the analogy I would draw to Caitlin Clark. What she did for college basketball, women's college basketball, it was nothing unlike we haven't ever seen before. And, okay, and then I'm ready to sample a little bit more WNBA. And they had kind of the takes from Taurasi and some others just got very, I don't know, petty to me. It seemed like a little bit. But to hear an ESPN executive call Caitlin Clark a gateway drug? I'm sorry. You got to do better than that. It's a negative connotation. Caitlin Clark should not be compared to recreational drugs. Are you kidding me? No, Tiger in sports is no longer a thing. But look, I'll still tune in for the majors, right? And look, women's college basketball, I was tuning in before, but now I'm not going to miss the women's Final Four. I think the way it kind of times out between the Friday evening and then having the championship game on the Sunday in between the men's Final Four, I think that all kind of lays out nicely. And there will be storylines that we'll get invested in when it comes to the women's tournament. Now, for the WNBA, I think it's a crowded sports landscape. I think that their challenge, well, they have multiple challenges. One, of course, being a labor agreement. It would be nice if they can get to that. But I just thought that quote was kind of silly, and I just kind of needed to point that out. Tomorrow on the show, well, always joining us on a Wednesday, our favorite Baltimorean, PJ Glasser, will join us for his betting plays here. And we'll talk a little World Baseball Classic with him, as well as, he loves his Orioles, he loves his baseball, and get his college basketball plays as, hey, coming up, we're going to start getting those automatic bids. We will start getting the debate about who deserves what seed. PJ Glasser will be joining us tomorrow, as will CB1 of the Buffalo Bills. We're going to talk to Christian Benford on the show tomorrow. Really excited about that. all these years at camp, never had a chance to sit down. He's got a great charitable event going on that certainly Bills fans could be a part of. And we'll talk to Christian Benford also about, well, all these changes that have happened here. New head coach, new defensive coordinator, new system, new teammates. But the basics still remain. Yeah, the roster's still pretty good. You still have 17. And in the new head coach, well, he was here before. So where there's going to be a lot of change, it still is a blueprint that you think will provide success for the Buffalo Bills here in 2026. Christian Benford will join us on the show tomorrow. Fantastic show today. And, as always, our phone line is brought to you by Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com, where I don't know if you knew this or not, Tim, but kids eat free on Sunday. You wouldn't pass as a kid, though.
No, but I will still go there and eat. I'll pay for it, though.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah, that's it. It's a lot of fun talking sports with you here in the Flower City. As let's see, what other things do we have to talk here? As coming up here, we'll get the show up in the Bulldog here in just a little bit. Baseball, not a lot of baseball happening this afternoon. Trying to look at the scoreboard right now, you've got the Phillies trailing Rays by a 3-1 score. You'll have other things tonight, though, I'm sure, with these exhibitions.
Yeah, Team USA plays the Giants, I believe.
Is that at 7? Okay, so that'll be Arson Judge going against the Giants coming up. And, again, the pool play, I'm not so into it all that much. Syracuse basketball tonight against Louisville. If they pull this off, the Orange, I mean, how many more games do we have for Adrian Autry as the head coach of Syracuse? You've got tonight at Louisville, Saturday at home against Pitt. Do you give them one win in the ACC tournament?
I don't.
I don't either. Syracuse, by the way, did name a new chancellor today, so I haven't rolled up my sleeves. I don't know what that would mean, but I would think then he might have thoughts on athletics. I don't know. I guess we'll hear about that. But if you're an Orange fan, it's going to be a year of change, first from your leader to your AD, and from the program that everybody cares about. No, it's not football. It's about men's basketball. Who will lead that program going forward? I have the cockamamie idea. Bring back Boeheim for 1 year. Jim Boeheim for 1 year. Orange fans should get behind that, no doubt about it. Thanks for listening to the show. You can go back and listen at any time in the Odyssey app. Show up in the Bulldog coming up next. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.